Hi everybody, Norman Van Aken here. Some of my treasure books come about because of a fantastic experience at a restaurant. And that is the case with this particular treasure book, Essential Cuisine by Michel. If it were not for my dear friend, my chosen brother, Charlie Trotter, this book would not be available to be in my treasure book pantheon because I would never have gotten to this restaurant to have the experience that we had together. Charlie, myself, our wives, and some other friends, one beautifully glorious afternoon in 1999 in L'Aïeul. Boy, that was a hard word for me to learn, a Midwestern boy. But we did go. Michel, 4 or 5 years older than me, built this beautiful restaurant down in the south central Massif area of France. The town nearby, L'Aïeul, there is also famous for the knives. They make the steak knives with the little bee. But that's another story. This is a beautiful book. This book, I'm sure, would be worth hundreds of dollars because it's the first edition. And I got it that afternoon. By the time we left, I think we would have done anything to be able to recreate the dishes that were so stunningly beautiful. Gosh, this is a father and son situation between Michel and Sebastian. Sebastian's carrying on the work now. But it's the father, Michel, writing here when he writes, "When we were kids, my brother and I used to race back from school to swallow the eggs of our neighbor's chicken. Our secret escapades would always bring a scolding from our parents, who failed to understand our lack of appetite at dinner later, I guess. We were mischievous, and we were delighted by the farmer's irritation at his chickens, who never seemed to lay. We were little gourmet thieves enjoying eggs still warm from the nest." So many great chefs have these moments of formation in their lives born in childhood. I vividly carry mine still. Here's an old Post-it, and I just happened to probably write this sort of myself. It says, "I see Charlie more in Bras than even Girardet." Freddie Girardet was Charlie's famously most revered chef. Girardet's book is a treasure book, but it does not have this photography in it. Tim Turner, the photographer that Charlie used almost exclusively over the years, was such a huge part of being able to capture and showcase Charlie's capacity for beautiful food. I wrote this back when, I don't know. This is an appetizer he's writing about. "To crunch foie gras sandwiches with gomasio, apricot bean puree, a sweet and sour reduction, and assorted leaves. I am sensitive to the poetry." This is why I really chose this. "I am sensitive to the poetry of words, especially when it comes with the poetry of cooking." Yes, I totally agree with that. And as usual in my books, there is a piece of paper that I was writing on one day as I was trying to absorb the lessons from this book. Notes to myself. Some are very plain things like check on the mise in the freezer, cook black beans with a puree of dates for a foie gras sauce. And then some notes about, yes, it says page 56, the herb jus, which is right here. Always trying to absorb, to learn what I can. Cooking school was not in my life, but learning to cook from other people, learning to cook from traveling, learning to cook from books. Yes, of course, certainly. This picture right here, I know that somewhere in our photographs there is the version of this dessert that we had at Michel that amazing day. Yes, I'll turn it and you can take a look at it too. All right. This is almost too good to be true. This is the way it worked. Charlie had already been to Bra and some other restaurants in Europe with Emerald a few years earlier, and he pretty much said, "Hey, you and I are going, and this is what's going to happen." And Charlie got a map out, like one of the old Rand McNally maps, and like some sort of four-star general, he just drew where we were going to go and when we were going to be there. And so here's the itinerary from 1999, starting with September 4th. We ate at a restaurant, not famous over here, but certainly famous in France, Michel. That was September the 4th of 1999. September the 5th, we were traveling, and then on September the 6th, we dined at El Bulli. At September, I'll go into that another time. It's just too much to cover right here. I just want to tell you about the compression of these days, and I'll tell you why these days were so lining up. September the 7th, we had an amazing lunch at Santa Maria's place, El Rocco con Fabes, and I've done a treasure book on that. Santi was a sainted, beautiful man. On September the 8th, this was quite the day. This was not planned. This was worked out by one of Charlie's friends, Stephen Greystone. A surprise. It was Charlie's birthday. Somehow or another, Stephen had finagled his way to convince this longtime person who worked for Chef Girardet. He was the maitre d', actually. He met us outside of the hotel that we were staying in, an inn, actually, owned by the chef Marc Vera, and we had to hurry up, get dressed, and go over to Switzerland, to the town of Crissier, where Freddie Girardet's home was. By this point in time, Chef Girardet had sold his restaurant to a chef de cuisine and retired. So he, for the first time ever, opened up his home to cook for some Americans. And we were those Americans. And it was Charlie's 40th birthday that day. Again, this book, this particular treasure book one is around this book, but I can't help but tell you about these experiences. And then after that lunch, which I wrote an article about for Food Arts Magazine called Looking for the Pope. Food Arts Magazine, if you could look that up and the name of that article, that might be fun. And that evening we had Charlie's celebratory dinner at Marc Vera. But in the middle of this, we dined at Michel Bras. And I must confess that while I will never forget any of those experiences, as far as a restaurant went, as far as me feeling like what was the best restaurant I'd ever eaten at up until that point, and nothing has surpassed it since that point, this man's restaurant is the one, Michel Bras. After lunch, we retired out to the salon where we had coffee and many desserts. This was second desserts because we had this amazing cheese course, and then we just were pretty much dazed. We just had to like almost talk each other down from what just happened. Oh man. There are certain chefs in the world that just have had the capacity to transform exactly where they live. And that remains Michel Bras and the restaurant Bras to this day. You would never expect when you're traveling down the road to see what you're going to see when you finally come to this restaurant, because you are out in the countryside. You are in this beautiful rolling hill area. Everything is quite bucolic, but all of a sudden you see something that's almost like it's delivered from some New York architect with just the most fantastic, beautiful design to it. But it was not out of place. It still fit in. Looking out the windows and at the rolling hills and the grasses, and then tasting the local cheeses, I just felt like he got it. He just nailed it. And this book allows me to recall that very precious day and that very precious time with Charlie and Janet and the people that we were with. And then, of course, Chef Bra and even Chef Bra's mother, who showed us around the kitchen after that lunch. A treasure book and a treasure memory, and one that I wanted to share, I had to share with you. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a beautiful night.